No, ready to go live. Facebook is refusing to go live, which is fine. Screw them.
Fuck Facebook.
Oh, there it is.
Come on.
Right. We're there. We're in there. All right, Bega, let's do this thing. Banner us up. Move him in. Get him ready.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, hi.
Oh, shit.
Bago, you're awesome.
Go. Here we go. Hell yeah. Trying to be.
We're going to try again.
There we go.
All right.
Look at that
Hey,
handsome mug.
I got two
illegal.
video clips from your Spook. India locals and Bollywood finish. We plan those.
No.
No. I just threw a bunch
Okay.
of shit in there.
Okay. Okay. Make sure.
All right. So, all right. Here we go. We're going to try it again. There you go. All right. I'm going to put you in the background, Bago. Thank you, sir. And
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
This here is a true story about crossing the pond
when?
at night in the world's smallest cockpit on the tanker through the weather. Oh, and to the tanker crew who did that, thanks a lot. We really appreciated that. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. Well, there I was crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fun.
So there I was, chained to the deck of the USS Roosevelt. The flight deck pitched perilously towards the water while I watched an empty airplane make its final kamikaze run towards the flight deck. And that's when I put my hand on the handle.
Oh, and that's how great aviation tales begin. Terrifying though they may be. Greetings, everybody.
Empty?
Repeat here, coming to you from Oakland, California. He did say empty, and that's my co-host, Fig. Greetings, Fig. You finally made it. It looks like you're going to stay online with us this time. This is our second attempt. We had to abort the first one. Rejected takeoff.
This has been a technological nightmare. I'm in kind of nowhere, Michigan. Beautiful, however, for Wi-Fi and broadcasting recording purposes, it stinks. But I want to say, I am really excited to introduce our guest today, Spook, whom I have much history with from TVS class.
Yeah, buddy.
Was it 587 Echo Company, baby?
The tuggle struggle, baby. The struggle was real.
Wow, 587. That's just shy of 40 years ago, you geezers. Damn.
Wow. Did you say that
Not
out
right
loud?
at all.
40? That's not right. That ain't right.
It can't be right.
Yeah.
Well, he's senior to us, Spook, so that you know what that means.
I'm a full-on geezer, I admit it.
He's really old.
Doesn't seem right.
Oh, man.
Still
Great
immature
note.
knucklehead
Welcome,
inside.
sir.
Good.
That
Good to see you, brother. Good to see you.
that tease of a story is well, I can't wait to hear the rest of it, but we got a lot to get to before that.
Roger
So holy
that.
shit.
It was a
Yeah.
day.
So
Right.
we generally start with how did you get interested in aviation? And I have a little side story to tell on you when you somewhere in there. So how did you get an aviation contract in the PLC program? What got you there?
Well, I grew up in God's country, where you are, brother, Michigan. I always had a passing interest in aviation, but then a family friend who flew A7s in the Air National Guard took me to the Selfridge Air Show at Selfridge Air National Guard Base, and they had the Thunderbirds were there, and all the military stuff was on display, and I was just like, oh yeah, I've definitely got to do this.
I want to do that.
Yeah, so that was it, man. That was it. I was hooked from that moment. I was probably like 14 or something, 12 or 14. That was it. I was in.
Perfect.
Nice.
And then,
Nice.
so I know your commissioning source was the PLC program. What school did you go to?
Western Michigan, Kalamazoo, Michigan. So they had I knew you
Oh,
needed to
you're
be,
yes.
you needed a college degree to get to be an officer, and then had to be an officer to be a pilot. So Western Michigan has a really good aviation program, actually, and so I went there.
Yeah.
And then I thought I was going to join the Navy. That was the plan. You remember that movie Final Countdown?
Oh yeah,
Yeah. So
Kirk Douglas
Yes.
and
Yes.
yeah, this was pre Top Gun, but I love that movie. It had the Tomcats in it and everything. So I had talked to a Navy recruiter, and he said, "Well, you need to go to university." So, and I remember it was my freshman year at Western, and they had like a career day on, and all the recruiters were there. So I went and talked to everybody, and I went up to the Air Force guy, and I was like, "How much of your aviation, is combat?" And he's like, "Oh, well, about 35% is combat." And I was like, "Okay." I went to talk to the Navy recruiter. I'm like, "How much of yours is combat?" And they're like, "Well, about 60%. And then there was a Marine Corps recruiter there, in his dress blues and everything. And I walked up to him and I was like, "Hey, how much of your aviation is, combat?" And he just looked at me with this incredulous look of contempt on his face. And he just went, "It's all combat, son." So I was like, "Yep, that's the one. That's it. That's the one." Yeah. So they put me in the PLC program, brother. And then I remember going to we had to do like an aviation aptitude exam, and I'm like, I got no business being here at all. And then, there's like probably 30 people in the room. And then he comes out at the end and he says, "I didn't finish it." So I figured I didn't get through all the questions, and I figured I'd just boned it up. And he comes in, he pulls like two of us aside, and he goes, "The rest of you get out of here. You're the only two that passed." And I was like, "Holy shit." So, yeah.
nice.
PLC,
I remember
here
that
come.
test. There were terrible questions on there, like what kind of fuel does an Atlas rocket use?
And like little hand drawn. Remember, there's like little hand drawn diagrams of an airplane, and it's like nose up and turning left, and then you had to pick which PFD represented
Yeah,
attitude
Yeah.
indicator represented that thing. They're all like these child sketches that were done in like pencil or something. It was fun.
Well, had you started flying there? Had you done any flying at Western Michigan?
I had done like maybe 20 or 30 hours. Like I'd soloed and everything, but I didn't have a license by the time I went in.
Well, that
Okay.
probably helped, just
Yeah,
having a little bit of, but when you took those tests,
Yeah.
because
yeah,
it is just aptitude after all. You don't have to be a
Yeah.
rocket surgeon.
right.
Yeah, I went.
Look at
right.
us.
As soon as I turned 16,
we
I
made
went and
it
did
through.
my first flying lesson in Salem, Michigan. The airport's not even there anymore. There's still a nav aid there, but my mother
Oh, yeah.
desperately
Nice.
trying to convince me to do something else with my life.
Oh, there you go.
Well, that didn't work
And-
out so well.
And not at all.
Yeah. And for those wondering, he talked about a PFD. That's a primary flight display. It's basically your attitude indicator. It's what you're having to look at. So,
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, very cool. So into the PLC program, did you do 10 weeks or 2 6-weeks?
I did
What'd
the
you do?
2 6-week ones, the mind fuck one where you had to actually
Yeah.
go back later.
Yeah.
That's what Repeat did, right?
You and
Yeah.
me both. We failed life's IQ test by going back.
Yeah, right. Like you finish
So,
that first 6 weeks and you go back to civilian world and you're like, "Oh, I got to do this again."
All right, so I didn't do that. I did one 10-week shot in between
Smart.
junior and senior year of college. But so Repeat said the first 6 weeks was not so horrible because they wanted to get you to come back, and then the second 6 weeks was absolutely horrible. What was your experience?
Well, he must have gone to a different juniors than I went to because they were both horrible.
Oh, I didn't say it wasn't horrible. I said it wasn't as horrible.
Fair enough.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, this was out at Camp Upshur at the time. You remember Camp
Yep.
Upshur?
Camp
Oh, yeah,
Rupture.
I know what it
Yeah.
was.
So it looked like something straight out of the Gomer Pyle TV show. It was
yeah.
just a bunch of
Had
Quonset
the
huts.
Quonset huts,
and-
right?
Yeah.
Little Half Moon
Oh,
Quonset
yeah.
hut.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
so do you have
idea.
any? Go ahead, brother.
Say
I'm
again?
sorry. I'm stepping.
Go
on
ahead.
you.
Go ahead, brother.
I was going to ask you if you had any memorable experiences from officer candidate school that that have humor or terror involved that you'd like to share.
Well, I remember, they had this terrifying sergeant instructor, right? And the head guy, Gunny Wise, and he was just the most intimidating dude. And it was like one of the first days, and we were out on the grinder doing like this, which is just this big open concrete slab where you do drills, you march around and try and get some sort of coordination between everybody. And it's like 100 degrees out, and he was just not happy with the state of retardation of the platoon, and he was yelling at us, and it was windy, and his hat blew off, and it was like tumbling across the tarmac, and he just goes, "Stop!" and the hat just goes, and it just stopped dead, and everyone's like, "Oh, this guy commanded everything."
He do that?
Yeah, how did he do that? Yeah.
Oh, holy shit! Yeah,
And I
it
fell
was hot
asleep.
out on that grinder, but at least it
Yeah.
was humid. So that was miserable. Virginia in the summertime. Quantico still owes me an apology.
It's awful. And I fell asleep walking once. Like it can actually happen. Because like at PLC you get like 3 hours of sleep a night. And then I was fire watch, so I had to walk around. And I was doing my little walking around outside, and then I just woke up on the ground. I was like, oh, it's just so tired that I fell asleep while I was walking.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, that's brutal. And then and you went back. Did you do the main side thing, or where'd you go for seniors?
Main side.
Okay.
And then my bunkmate in seniors was just the biggest shit magnet in the whole platoon. And
oh, nice.
remember on main side, like the buildings were H shaped, and like you
Right.
came into the
Yes.
squad bay in the middle, like when the
Yes.
drill instructors came in, they came in the middle, and our bunk was right there. This the first person you saw when you walked in was my rack mate, and he was always just
boy.
a clusterfuck of unsatisfactoriness, and so they would always just come and just yell at him and fuck with him, and then as soon as they were done, like who's standing next to him, right? Me. And then
Yeah.
they would just move to me,
Yeah.
and then the next person.
Well, as long as we're here fucking with him, let's get
Yeah,
after
like,
you.
oh, what are you looking at? And like, nothing. So yeah, he was the
Man.
least. He made everyone's life misery that time. Because then they would do the old thing, where it's like, oh, his last name was Means. Candidate Means, sit down. Well, everyone else does push-ups and mountain climbers, and you just sit on your foot locker and here's a cool drink. Have a drink. Yeah. He made it though.
All right.
He figured it out.
Did he? Okay. All right.
Wow.
Figured it out in the end.
Tell me he didn't have an air contract, that guy.
No, he didn't. Thank goodness.
Okay, good.
Right. Oof.
Well, so I know when you went to the basic school,
Yeah, buddy.
fairly well, because we were, it was alphabetical order. Platoons were alphabetical order. So Spook and I ended up in the same platoon. Now, I want to know what year in college were you when you got your? Hey, that's a couple of steely-eyed killers around the campfire right
buddy.
there, huh?
Waiting for the marshmallow.
What
In
year?
October of
What year
'87,
in college
cooking
did you get? Did you get your USMC tattoo on your arm?
I'd
The
gone
one
to
that you
visit a
don't
friend-
have anymore.
The one that I don't. Oh, that's the story. Yeah, that's a good story. I went to visit a friend of mine in like Fort Bragg. He was in the Army, and so yeah, it must have been before or after seniors. I can't remember exactly, but yeah. So we got drunk and we decided tattoos was a good idea.
And some of our listeners may find this hard to believe, especially with the culture of body art today. But back then, Marine officers did not have tattoos.
No.
And my man Spook had a tattoo. It was high on his shoulder, right? It was like way up here, right? It says
Right.
USMC right
I don't know
across
if you
here.
can see that. See the scar still there?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
So it's up
so
there.
this was
All right.
this was pre-laser removal. And what did Lieutenant Spook do? He went and had that thing fucking.
This is
so
okay,
tell the story.
Never trust a Navy doctor, right? So we were at AI in Pensacola, right? And what is everyone deathly afraid of at Pensacola? NAMI, right? They're getting
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
Navy
damn
whammy,
whammy.
baby.
some bullshit excuse to kick you out because that's what they're looking for, right? So I was getting my flight physical in Pensacola. We'd just gotten there. And the doctor notices I have a tattoo, right? He's going, "Oh, you've got a tattoo," and I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh, well, what do you want to fly?" And I'm like, "Well, I want to fly jets. I want to fly fighters." And they're like, "Oh, well, they're not going to let you fly fighters with a tattoo." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he goes, "Oh, well, you're going to have a nuclear clearance. And if they see you have a tattoo, that's like an indicator of mental instability, and they're not going to let you. They're not going to clear you to fly." Right? So I don't know any better. I'm just a retard. I just showed up there, right? And so
Holy shit.
I'm like, holy shit! Well, I want to fly jets. I don't want to fly cargo airplanes or whatever. And so he goes, "Well, I'm working the emergency room on the weekend. You can come in and I can remove it for you." And it will just leave. You won't even see the scar. It'll just be this little pencil scar, right? And so I'm like, "Oh, yeah, well, yeah, of course, whatever I got to do, right? I'll do whatever I got to do." So I go in there, and this guy is just a hack, right?
Oh yeah.
He has no idea what he's doing. So I'm laying on the table, and he's giving me a local in my arm, and I can feel him just hacking away at it, right?
Oh, geez.
And not in any kind of pleasing, calculated surgical manner. He's like, it's like he's trying to get the last pickle out of a jar, right? Like he's tugging at it and I can feel my arm just moving, and he's on this side and the nurse is on this side, right? So I don't want to look over there. So I'm looking at the nurse, and the nurse is just sitting there going,
wincing and
and
grimacing,
like, I'm like, well, that's not good. What is he doing? So I have to look over, and so I look over, and just then he's nicked a blood vessel, right? And just as I look over, he goes, squirts blood like all over my face.
Oh shit!
And I was like, oh. And then so he finally finishes it, and he's like, he holds it up, and he's like, "Do you want to keep it?" And I was like, "No, I don't want to keep it, you lunatic."
Oh my god!
And then so he over sews it, like, so he doesn't sew it closed like that. He sews it like over sews it, right?
Yeah.
And then
so that won't leave a nice scar.
so that's not going to leave a nice scar. But then we go back to AI on Monday, right? And we start doing obstacle courses and running and push-ups and everything, right? I don't want anyone to know this has happened. I'm not going to admit that this has happened to anybody, right? So the scar, the whole time, the scar is just, the stitches are just pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling. So it ended up leaving this huge scar on my arm. And of course, the entire story is bullshit because nobody cares if you have a tattoo.
No. And I remember I must have seen it when it started to separate because it looked horrible.
It was gruesome.
Yeah, it looked horrible. I was like, oh, because I remember the tattoo. And I'm like, what the fuck happened to your arm? Yeah. Anyway, thank you for telling that story. That's I'm sorry if I had to you're probably gonna have like some PTSD shit happen tonight because you just talked about that. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, that was
There you go. There you go. Well, you made it through there, and then you went down to. Let me also mention real quick for those listening: if you hear noises in the background there, that's Fig. He's in a bar as usual, recording. It's the only place he can get some Wi-Fi. So
it's not a bar; it's a clubhouse. It's a clubhouse
cards at an old folks' home.
It is. It is. But these fuckers are crazy. Right. Anyway.
So that's what the noise is in the background. He's keeping it down as much as he can. He just had to go kick some poor old woman's backside for talking near his mic. Now, so anyway, so you left AI. You went down. You're a fellow boomer. It looks like you went to VT27 in Corpus.
Yeah, good times. Good times.
What time frame did you go through there?
88, I guess it was.
So was Jimmy Sins the CO?
I wouldn't have the slightest idea.
Don't remember. Okay.
I don't remember.
All right.
His head's down. Oh, and I got another injury when I was there. I had a motorcycle accident and dislocated my shoulder. But there was no way I was going to tell anybody there that had happened. So I spent like 4 weeks just hoping no one would ask me to pick anything up with my right arm. Yeah, my right arm. So I had to do all like the circuit breaker drills with my left arm and the T-34 because I couldn't move my right arm around.
Oh, dear God.
Good times. Good times.
So a scarred up left shoulder, a dislocated right shoulder.
Mm.
Oh
I'm
my
not quitting.
God.
I'm not quitting.
No, not doing it.
Yeah, there's
So,
no quitting this guy. Zero.
right. That's awesome. And then down to Kingsville, Texas.
Were you a Kingsville guy?
The King
Kingsville guy?
Ranch.
Yeah, Kingsville, 23 and 22.
Nice.
Okay.
And then,
It,
so when did you get your wings? I think you were maybe a couple months in front of me.
It would have been, I think it was March 90 or something. Does that make
Okay,
sense?
yeah.
No, it would have
I
been,
think that's
no.
Do you
Yeah,
wing with
maybe.
Biscuit? Was
Yeah,
Biscuit
I
a
did go
Kingsville
through.
guy?
Biscuit was there. I remember Biscuit being there.
Okay.
Around that time frame.
All right. And then you
All right.
you went Hornets East or West? I lost track of you after flight school, dude. So
Yeah, I got
the rest of this I'm learning now.
yeah, I kind of lucked out and got Hornets, although I shouldn't tell you this, but I'll lose my secret Hornet decoder ring, but if I had my time over, I would have probably taken Harriers, but
Well, you would have been a much better pilot in the
of
end,
course. Yeah,
you know,
Wouldn't
because you
take
actually fly that airplane.
yeah, right.
you don't just vote in it.
Yeah, I got Hornets East, but I went to the Navy rag in Lemoore.
Okay.
125, which I'm like, can I go to 101? They're like, no, just go to the Navy rag. So, yeah, 6 months in Lemoore, and then East Coast Squadron, Beaufort,
Which one?
VMFA 451, the Warlords, which
451.
have since been decommissioned when peace broke out everywhere, and then recommissioned as the training squadron now, 501. It's the same squadron lineage, but yeah, I got to Beaufort just as 451 had come back from the Gulf War, from Desert Storm. So I was the first F&G guy to join the
Oh, okay.
squadron. So everybody had combat time except
Yeah.
for me, right? I'm the,
Sure.
and then I was the only new guy for the longest time. The
Well,
only
if it
Yeah.
makes you
non-combat
if it makes you feel any better, Spook, Repeat and I were in the only Harrier squadron on the East Coast that didn't deploy during the first Gulf War.
Yeah.
So we
That's not true. We deployed to Yuma to drop bombs to get ready.
He's right. We did deploy to Yuma. We did not leave. We watched all the 45 days of combat on CNN.
Yeah, all these guys came back and they're like, look at this HUD tape. Look at this HUD tape of me blowing this up. Look at this HUD tape of me taking out these tanks. And I was like, oh.
Brutal. Oh man.
Yeah.
Did
And I was the only single guy too. They were all married as well. So it's like I showed up ready to rage in my first gun squadron and everyone wanted to go home and, have dinner.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that your first tour in your gun squadron was how long? How many years were you in 451 before you had to move and do something different?
2.5, I think.
Okay, that's
So-
good. That's about normal.
Yeah, that's decent.
And then did you put in and did you do the Australian exchange right
Yeah,
then,
man,
or
I
did you
like-
do something?
No, I put in.
That was. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was like I put in for the exchange. It was about the right timing for the Australian exchange, flying Hornets with the Australians, and I was like, "Oh, I'll do that." Right? Like I'd kind of tried to weasel my way out of 451 because, it was full of great guys, not because of the people, but we just weren't deploying. Like the wing had wanted to give 451 some time. They'd come back from the war, so you guys stay home and I'm ready to rage, right? I just got to my first gun squadron. I want to go to Westpac. I want to deploy, and we're doing nothing. Like we're just sitting in Beaufort doing nothing.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
frustrating.
Yeah.
And we did a couple like deployments to Norway, but like we weren't doing any Westpacs. We weren't going anywhere, and they were just standing up all the Delta squadrons in the 2-seaters, and I was like, well, I could go there. There's twice as many people to drink with, right? And
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to weasel my way out of 451 to get into some kind of deploying squadron. But then this thing came up, and I was like, oh, yeah, I'll do that. And to my shock and awe, I got it in the end. Like,
Right.
There's 451, Warlords, hoorah.
Yeah. So that's up on the live stream, a picture of the whole squadron in front of a Hornet.
Yeah.
Nice.
Hey,
And then the
hey,
monitor
hey,
called me up, and he's like, just before they awarded it to me, he called me up. He goes, oh, do you want the Canadian exchange? And I was like, that's in Cold Lake, isn't it? In Canada, like the middle of Canada. And I was like, He's like, yeah, Cold Lake. I'm like, no, I don't want that at all.
No.
So he goes, all right, we'll give you the Australian exchange. I was like, sweet.
Yeah. Okay.
That's like an IQ test, isn't it?
Yeah. Let's see. Do I want to be?
Wait, do you want to go to Australia or Canada? Which of
Well,
these?
the middle of Canada, someplace called Cold Lake. When they're calling it cold, like when the Canadians are calling it cold.
Yeah, that's not good.
Probably
Yeah.
And you're a Michigan guy, so you understand cold weather, and you're like, yeah,
and
no.
plus, I remember one of your podcasts talking about where you went to the winter survival training in Wisconsin.
Yes. Folk
Yeah,
field.
we did that twice. 451, we did that
Yay!
twice because we went to Norway above the Arctic Circle in the middle of winter. So we had to
we
go to
did that because
survival
that's
twice, and I was like, I'm not
right.
Yeah,
Great.
I'm not no more. Yeah,
Oh,
there we go.
That looks
There's
like
Norway.
that looks like some winter. Yeah, good times. Hey, were you happen to wait? When did you go? When did you leave for? I saw you had snow all over you trying to get out.
Yeah, there's a good story.
When did
with
you
that.
go? When did you leave 451 and go to Australia? What year
August
was
of
that?
'93.
Okay.
Okay.
So in
So your second
February
tour.
'93, did you happen to be in Norway for that freaking NATO thing?
Would have been.
In like,
Yeah. Whatever
yeah.
Battle
Well,
Griffith or
Repeat and I
whatever.
were there.
Yeah.
You guys were in Boda and we were up in Everness.
Yeah.
How about that?
Okay.
Well, I don't know what your accommodations were like, but ours were. We were sleeping in. It looked like a train, a small train surrounded by covered in snow. And it was like a train cars, right? Repeat. I mean, it was two guys to a room. You had to sleep in like cold weather sleeping bags because there wasn't any heat in there. There was the only thing that were heated was like the common car,
Yeah.
and it was only like 45 in there. Oh my god.
We were staying in this
Unbelievable.
fishing camp. Like, so Boda was on the end of this, like, your finger of land in this fjord.
Okay.
And people would go there in the summertime and go fishing and stuff. So there's a little fishing camp with these little cabins that you would, like, normally one person would probably go in to change their clothes, right? The tiny little, about twice the size of a phone booth. And we had four guys to that, each one of those.
Nice.
Just living in this camp that was
It's a
designed
little
to be
smaller
there.
than a stateroom on a
Yeah.
Yeah.
But these things were designed to be used in the summertime, right? Not the middle of wintertime. So
No,
they were
with all
freezing
your-
cold.
Yeah. Perfect.
No.
Okay.
So,
So
tell us
you,
a story about that picture there of you getting covered with snow. You said that was an interesting story.
Yeah. All right. So, as I'm sure all of us have been, we've been scared at one time or another. But usually that's not self-induced, right? That's the first time I've
Usually.
scared the shit out of myself. So there's a little background to that story. Is like on that winter survival camp in Wisconsin. This is the second time we've been there, and of course we're air crew, so we're not taking it seriously whatsoever, right? And much to the chagrin of all the instructors. So there was one day when we decided, like all the JO pilots decided that we were going to ambush the maintainers, all the troops, with snowballs and have a giant snowball fight, right? So we'd set up behind this berm and had hundreds of snowballs already lined up, ready to go. And then a bunch of the troops were coming back, and then we just attacked and we started launching snowballs at them, and pelting them as you do, being 12-year-old children. And then, being the good Marines that they were, they counterattacked immediately. And they came up over the burn, and then we all turned to run, and a bunch of them jumped on me just as I had slipped on the ice. And so I was coming down on the ice like that with my hands out to break my fall, and about three guys landed on top of me, and it broke my wrist.
Oh.
So I
No.
broke my wrist. So they're straight to the emergency room in Wisconsin now. So when we went on that deployment, I had a broken arm, broken wrist. So I was the forward party, the advanced party to go set everything up for everybody. And then my cast came off. So I wasn't doing any flying for the first half of the exercise. And then my cast came off about midway through the exercise.
Okay.
And so I said, to the schedule writers, I'm like, hey, break me an easy. I haven't flown in about 6 weeks, so break me an easy, and just send me up as -4 with somebody, right? Don't make me lead the mission. And they're like, yeah, okay, cool. So we go up as a 4-ship, and for your listeners who don't know how 4 ships are organized, the number 1 guy is usually the senior guy. He's the mission planner. He does all the planning, leads the mission. Number 3 is kind of the second in charge, the next senior guy or the next most important guy, and he'll take over the mission if number 1 dips out. And then 2 and 4 are just the snuffy wingmen who just have to show up. And so I was number 4, the most junior guy in the flight, and your job is just to stay in position, don't lose sight of anybody, just stay in the position.
Join up, shut up, just say 2 or 4.
Shut up, just be there when they call you. And right?
No, sir, this round is mine, and I think the fat one likes me.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. And you did a hell of a job out there today, sir. So I wasn't really paying that much attention in the brief, and I hadn't been flying in the airspace much because number 4, you don't really have to do anything. So we went out, and we were doing our thing. I can't remember what the mission was, maybe intercepts with some Norwegians or something, but we got this call. It said, hey, there's an unforecast blizzard coming in. You guys need to get back here right away. You need to get back here and try and beat it in. So we turn around. We're max power back to the field. I'm number 4 trying to keep up. So I've got kind of the lowest fuel of anybody. And we get back just about the time the blizzard hits. And so we're going to try and get in. And we all break off into the stack at different altitudes. And one's going to go first, and then 2, then 3, then 4. So I don't really know where the alternate field is. It's in my helmet bag. I'm looking at my helmet bag, and I'm like, well, I'm trying to stay in formation, so I can't.
In your helmet bag,
really
which is conveniently tucked up under your ejection seat at this point.
Yeah, right. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't really know where the alternate is. And anyway, so number 1 goes down, and number 2, I hear him miss out, and he does a missed approach. Number 2 goes down, he does a missed approach. Number 3 goes down, he does a missed approach, and I'm like, fuck. And now my fuel's getting really low, right? And I was like, fuel's low. I don't know where the field is. So we're doing GCAs. Remember those where they would it's basically a voice activated ILS, right?
Yeah,
You're
ground controlled
2 degrees.
approach. You're on glide slope. You're on
2
your
degrees
lineup's
right,
good.
right, 2 degrees. You're 1 degree left. Turn right. So they would talk you down in this precision approach.
Right.
And the Norwegians were awesome at it because they must do it all the time, right? So he's giving me this GCA, and he's got me bang on the glide slope and on center line. And I get to the minimums. I can't remember what they were. Let's say they were like 250 feet or something. Nothing, just all white. And then I'm like, oh, I'll press it a little bit, like 200 feet, nothing. 150 feet, nothing. I was like, oh, damn it. So I get to like 150 feet, and I'm like, oh, fuck. So I start bringing the power up, and then I see a glimmer of some lights, right? And I was like, dump the nose. I'm like, I hope that's not a building or something. And like break out at about 100 feet, and I can see the runway, and I'm bang on center line. I was like, sweet. Boom, positive impact, touchdown hard on the runway to break the snow. And the problem is now the runway's got about 2 inches of fresh snow on it, right? Because they haven't had a chance to plow it or anything.
Nice.
So braking action is nil.
So I bang as soon as I hit, 700 feet a minute, bang straight into and poof, just all this snow comes up. I can't see anything, right? And then I'm like, all right, I'll try the brakes, put the speed brake up, and the speed brake on the Hornet's right between the twin tails, and it comes up and just kind of spoils all the airflow around the tails, right?
Right.
It comes up, I tap the brakes, and the jet just slides like about 20, 30 degrees off center line. Right?
Nice
So
yaw.
the nose is pointing off this way towards the side of the runway. But thankfully, there's no coefficient of friction on the runway at all. So I'm just sliding still straight down the runway, but not pointing down the runway.
Just at an angle. Yeah.
At an angle. And I was like, oh, this is so not good. And then put the speed brake down, hit the right rudder, and straighten the nose back out. And this is an Norwegian Air Force field. So there's no short and long field gear. There's only midfield gear. That's all they've got, right?
Oh,
So
boy.
I'm thinking to myself, do I take the midfield gear? Because as soon as I do, now I've been admitting that I fuck something up, right? And if you're going to fuck something up, the first rule is what? Hide it, right? So
Absolutely.
I don't. If I'm thinking to myself, if I take the gear, then they're going to know. And all this time, I'm debating whether I should take the midfield gear or not. It goes swoop, under the nose, right? So I've already missed it. And I was like, fuck. But at least I'm pointing down the runway now. And I just stomp on the brakes, like, butt off the seat, legs straight, trying to push the pedals through the firewall.
Right.
And the jet just goes like, here's the end of the runway, right? And it goes just stop.
Nice.
And I was like,
With the nose over the edge. Oh.
like,
Yeah.
like I had to take more than a 90-degree turn to get back to the taxiway, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the runway, right? And I was
Right
just
turn
like,
at the end, speed permitting.
I was like, oh, holy shit. There wouldn't have been more than 10 feet of runway left.
No.
And I was just like,
Yeah.
I just sat there for a second going, holy shit. Then
And then-
yeah, it was a speed break. Then I taxi back in and the CO's waiting, right? And I'm like, oh, fuck. And he's been listening to the whole thing, right? And so I get out of the jet. He goes, oh, good job, Spook, on getting in. And I was like, uh-huh.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. If you just knew what I just did, I'd be fired on the spot. But like nobody could see anything because the visibility was like 100 feet. But I was like, oh, that's the first time I scared the shit out of myself in an airplane.
Oh, that's awesome.
Story.
And then you had the ability to go, I don't know what was wrong with those knuckleheads, why they didn't see
Yeah.
anything. I broke out at 250 feet.
Yeah.
Let's go to the videotape. Oh, let's
Yeah.
don't.
Timing. It's all timing.
Right?
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah, there just
man.
happened to be a hole there when I came down.
So, well, I got a question. I don't know if it's in the notes here or not. I don't remember seeing it in there, but is Spook is an interesting story. How did we come across the call sign?
yeah.
I wish there was
I
a
need
cool
to know
story.
that.
I wish there was
Okay.
a cool story, but there isn't really. I got it in A4s, but not. I was like, they tried to give me a couple, and none of them were just sticking. And then I was on the ODO desk one day, and it was my birthday. And one of the instructors came up, and he's like, I said, "Oh, I'm on. It's my birthday. I'm on the desk, and it's Halloween. So I was born on Halloween, right? So
Oh, okay.
he goes,
Ah.
Spook. And he just started calling me Spook, and then everybody else started calling me Spook, and then that was it. So, and then when I went to my gun squadron, I'm like, I'm sure they're going to give me something much more derogatory when I get to my gun
Sure.
squadron, right? And they
Yeah.
they tried. They tried to give me a couple, and none of those took either, and everyone just kept calling me Spook, and so there you go. That's it.
Well, as long as you don't hate it, you got to
Yeah.
hate it to get it to stick.
could be a lot worse, right?
I don't know why, but we for some reason, we called you the Reverend. The Reverend
That-
Barrymore
that
at
was-
TBS.
Yeah.
I thought for sure that would stick. So I don't even know why we were calling you the Reverend.
I did
I
too,
don't even
because
remember.
It did stick kind of for a little while, but then it got shortened to Rev, and then they didn't like using Rev on the radio for some reason. But the story behind that, Fig, was, do you remember about that time all the like televangelists started getting done for like sleeping with hookers and
Yes.
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
right? So
Yes,
I sent
yes.
away for this ad in the back of a magazine to become an ordained minister in the Church of Salvation Church, right?
Yes.
And they sent me a card
Okay.
that said Reverend Barrymore, because I figured
That's it. That's it.
must be a good way to meet chicks, right?
Yeah, the Reverend Barrymore. That's
Yeah,
why
the
we
Reverend-
called you the Reverend Barrymore, because you were
Exactly
ordained
right.
Reverend.
Oh,
yes.
that's
Exactly
funny.
Oh,
That's
I love it.
outstanding.
So,
Oh,
right.
man.
So let's see, you went to Australia. Did you say wait, you went to Australia in 93?
yeah, 93 to 95.
We Westpacked in 92, and I had the pleasure of spending it was probably about 6 weeks in Darwin.
Mhm.
and it was fantastic. And I later heard through the grapevine that you you got the Australian exchange, and I thought, oh my God, he's hit the jackpot. And then I heard later that, yeah, he's never coming back. So tell us about that. I mean, tell us about the exchange tour, and what it was like, and then I mean, why did you stay? I mean, I kind of know, but I mean, that's kind of cool.
Well, you're right. Darwin is fun, right?
Yeah.
Except the Air Force Base is not in Darwin anymore. Well, there is an Air Force Base in Darwin, but that's not where the Hornets are. The
Yes.
Hornets are 300
Alice
kilometers
Springs?
to the south in a place called Tyndall, which is
Tyndall,
in the
that's right.
middle of fucking nowhere, right?
Like
I should
we're
have known
talking
better.
mad.
Like, yeah, I should have known better. Like the Marines are like, oh, good deal from the Marine Corps? No. Like Australia, surfing, beaches, chicks? No, no, no. It was in the middle of the outback, right? And in this little town called Catherine, which is about 1,500 people, 2,000 people or something.
Oh my gosh.
And so, yeah, so the nearest traffic light was 300 kilometers away, right? But the cool thing was, since it was a permanent duty change, they shipped all my stuff over there, which included my car, which at the time was a Porsche 944, right? So that road that goes from Catherine to Darwin is called the Stewart Highway, and there's no
No
speed,
speed limit. No
there's
speed limit.
no speed limit.
Right.
So we would just fang up to Darwin as fast as that car would go. It was the best. And I got pulled over by the cops, and they're like, "Hey, you're going pretty fast." I'm like, "Well, there's no speed limit, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, but did you think it's safe?" I'm like, "Well, it's safe in this car. It's got racing suspension and racing engine, steering. It's like your car, maybe not so much, but my car is fine." And he couldn't give me any tickets or anything. But yeah,
Great.
so I was the only Marine north of the embassy in Canberra, which is very down in the south. And for people who don't know the geography of Australia, like most of the cities, Sydney, Melbourne, Canberra, which is the capital there, kind of Washington, D.C., all down the south kind of end. And then Darwin's at the very, very top, at the very north end. So I was the only Marine, like, not in Canberra. So I had a name tag made up for my desk that said Supreme Commander Marine Forces Northern Australia, because that was the only one there.
Oh, that's outstanding.
Yeah. But it was great. It was great fun because I basically considered myself to have diplomatic immunity. So I would just, and you're the exchange guy. You're supposed to be the entertainment, right? To a certain extent. So
Yes.
we had great fun. Speaking of the Stewart Highway, right? So as I said, Tyndall, the Air Force Base, Tyndall was 300 k's from Darwin. And Darwin was the closest commercial airport. So anytime someone had to go down south for any kind of administrative stuff or training or whatever, they'd have to go up to Darwin first and then fly them down south. So one of the pilots had to go down south for something, some training or something. Yeah, there you go. And
Wow, look at that.
it's so for those people who don't know about Australia, it's the same size as the continental U.S. basically. So that same size landmass, except it has 25 million people in it. So there's a whole lot of nothing.
Yeah. Instead of 300 million.
And nothing starts in the Northern Territory. That's where the nothing begins. But so one of the pilots had to go down south. So we had to drive. Somebody had to drive him up to Catherine. Someone had to drive him up to Darwin so he could catch his flight to the south. So we had gone to the CO and said, "Hey, we're happy to take Fig up to the airport. Can we get a RAF? Can we get an Air Force vehicle, Royal Australian Air Force? Can we get in a RAF vehicle to drive up there and take him to the airport?" And the CO goes, "Yeah, sure, you can take my car, right?" So the CO gets an Air Force car appointed to him that he gets to drive around, right? So he gives us the keys to his car, which is a station wagon. It's a red station wagon.
Uh-huh.
So we take the guy up to Darwin, but we go the night before so we can all go raging around the bars in Darwin as you do.
Sure.
So we spent a pleasant evening at the establishments in Darwin. Next morning, we go to the airport, pour this guy out of the car so he can catch his flight down south. And then we said, "Oh, well, let's go down to the pier. We'll get some breakfast, and then we'll head back down to Catherine." We get to the pier, and there's all these supercars parked along the pier. Dodge Vipers, Ferrari F40s, Lamborghini, we're like, what is going on here? Because Darwin, for people who don't know, it's the only kind of city in the Northern Territory, but it's very small. It's really just a big town. There are no supercars in Darwin. It's a tiny little town. It's like a Wild West town, kind of, right? Carved out of the outback. Carved out of the outback, right? So all of a sudden, there's all these supercars everywhere, and we're like, what is going on? And we come to find out that there's a cannonball race on. There's a legalized. Remember that movie Cannonball Run with Burt Reynolds, and
Yes,
which is
Cannonball
about
Run,
this illegal race. Yeah, it's about this illegal race across America, right? Well, this one, someone decided to organize a real one, right? So there's no speed limit on that Stewart Highway, and the Stewart Highway goes from the top of Australia all the way to the bottom of Australia through the middle, and there's no speed limit, right? So they're going to do this Cannonball Run from Darwin to Alice Springs, which is in the middle of Australia, and then back up to Darwin. And it's all sanctioned, and it's all legal, and it's a proper event, and there's cars from all over the world, right? People have flown them in to do this thing. So we're like, wow. So we look at all the supercars. We're having a good time. Have our breakfast. Start driving back down the Stewart Highway back to Catherine. And then all of a sudden, vroom, vroom, like the Dodge Viper goes flying past us, a Ferrari F40 goes flying past us. And we're like, oh, the race is on now, right? So I'm like, oh, it's on. It's so on.
Oh, it's on.
So I floor the CO's car, and that thing is going so fast. We think it's going to shake apart, right? The speedometer's pegged off the top. We don't even know how fast we're going. The car is shaking. I think the hood's going to come off any second. And you can watch the fuel gauge just going like this as we're driving because we're just hanging it. And it's so much so that over 300 kilometers, we actually had to stop and get gas, right? So we swing into this gas station, fill up, like pit run. It's all screaming tires and screeching pavement. We fill up as quick as we can. We're back on. And then we start passing. I'm driving, and this poor Air Force pilot is sucking the passenger seat up his butt and fingers on the dashboard. And I'm just like, it is on. And we're passing everybody now. We're like, vroom, we're passing all the guys that are in the race, right? And just screaming past them. No. And then the first stage is Darwin to Catherine, right? Which is where the base is. So as we're approaching Catherine, this is the biggest thing that's ever happened in Catherine ever, right? So everyone's lined up on the side of the road with all their cameras ready to take pictures, right? So here comes this red car screaming as fast as it can, shaking like it's going to come apart at any second. And they would all run down from the hills and take photos as we went by. And they're like, was that a station wagon? And, and so we come screaming we're still passing everybody in the race, and we come screaming into Catherine, and then everyone starts to slow down because that's the end of the first stage. And this guy waves us into this field, and he starts pointing over. I'm like, oh, now we're in trouble because we're not part of the race or anything, right? And so, and the car has the Air Force license plates on it, right? So he directs us over to this different part than everywhere else is parking. And so we ask him, like, why are we going over here? And he goes, oh, you came in fifth. Like, you came in fifth for the first day.
Came in fifth.
I was like, no, but we can't come in fifth. Like, we have to get out of here. So, because we're going to get in trouble. So we sneak out and then drive back.
Video evidence.
Yeah. Well, we sneak back and drive back to the base, right? And then the next morning, of course, the CO calls us in the carpet and just starts tearing strips off us for like half an hour because someone's filmed it, like someone's videotaped it, right? There's a red Air Force station wagon in the middle of all the Cannonball Run cars.
He sees his car.
Yeah, it's his car. And he goes, do you know how fast, what the speed limit is? And I was like, well, sir, I'm like, well, I didn't technically do anything wrong. It's unrestricted, right? Like, it's unrestricted. And he goes, yeah, but what's the RAF regulations on how fast you could drive a RAF car? And I was like, oh, yeah, those. I have no idea. And he's like, it's 100 kilometers. Yeah, he's like, it's 100 kilometers an hour, or 160 or whatever, 100 kilometers an hour. And I'm like, well, yeah, we were doing more than that. And he goes, yeah, I watched the video. It was pretty shaky. I couldn't tell what the license plate was. So get out of my office. So he diplomatic immunity wins again.
Right.
Oh, that is
It's fun.
awesome.
So how did they accept you when you rolled in there to be this exchange pilot in their squadron? Had they had Marines before, or
Yeah,
had
there's
been a
always
Navy guy?
There's always a 2-year rolling exchange there. So there was Chester was his call sign. Chester was there before I got there, and but he was married. He wasn't kind of like a raging single guy like I was, but yeah, so they were used to it. But like they were trying it on. Like the first night they took me to the bar and they're like, let's see if we can, because Australians
Get him under the table.
Yeah, and I was like, right,
Oh, yeah.
I know you're Australian, but I'm a Marine, so giddy up, let's go.
Let's go.
So yeah, so I ended up drinking them under the table the first night, and they're like, okay, cool, yeah, you take you
You can stay.
Checking the block.
Nice. All right.
There you go.
Oh, there,
Laugh
look
on
at
it.
there
that
you are.
guy.
Look at all that hair.
I know, right?
Look at that guy.
Ooh.
A
Yeah.
lot of extra
Standing-
drag. Just a lot of extra drag.
Yeah.
His
Stand in
haircut.
front of his Australian Hornet in the hangar there.
So
All right.
So I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it. So you have to answer it. So why? How is it that you? I mean, why did you stay in Australia, Spook? I mean, come on.
Let's tease that. Let's tease that. Let's take a 2.5-minute break to talk about Flight Training International.
There you go.
And
All right.
come back. You can think how best to answer that, and think of Gallo's quote: "Many a good war story ruined by an eyewitness." So,
Oh yes, and there's that.
yeah, here we go. Greetings, all you future airline pilots. Repeat here from So There I Was. And if you've ever aspired to pilot a commercial jet, you've got to hear about Flight Training International. Since 1993, FTI has been the front line in transforming capable military pilots into world-class commercial aviators. What sets FTI apart? First off, their simulators. We're talking full-motion FAA-certified rigs that replicate everything from an A330 to a Boeing 737. These are the same simulators used by the big names in flying, Airbus, Boeing, you name it, ensuring you're training under the most realistic conditions possible. FTI's story starts with its founders, veterans who know the struggles of transitioning to commercial aviation firsthand. They experienced the inefficiencies of the traditional path and decided to forge a new one, focusing exclusively on what it takes to pilot large airliners. No more underwhelming sessions in light twins. At FTI, you train in the big leagues. Every instructor at FTI is a seasoned commercial pilot, equipped with decades of experience in both military and commercial sectors. These aren't just teachers, they're mentors who have navigated the very skies that you aim to conquer. They understand the complexities of modern aircraft and global routes, ensuring you're not just certified, but truly prepared for anything the job throws your way. And there's more. FTI's training programs are meticulously crafted to accommodate your schedule. Their courses are available via an innovative iPad app, allowing you to study anytime, anywhere. Whether you're on a boat, overseas, or relaxing at home, FTI brings the classroom to you. So here's the special shout out to all you listeners. Mention So There I Was when you register and you'll receive $100 off your first course. Whether you're eyeing a type rating or an ATP certificate, FTI is your gateway to the big time. Visit FTIratings.com to start your journey. Remember, that's FTIratings.com. Flight Training International, where your career ascension begins. All right, so what kept you in Australia?
Well, Australian women, the gateway drug to citizenship.
Okay,
Beautiful.
but so here's the perplexing part for me is you already kind of painted that area that your base was in as in the middle of nowhere really with a very small population. So where did you meet the woman of your dreams?
Well, just to defend Tyndall for a while, though, as you would probably know from having been down there, great airspace to train in. Like once you're 30 DME from the base, there's no rules. Supersonic, go wherever you want. There's a good bombing range down there. So to defend Tyndall a little bit, it's great flying. It's not great to live there, but it's great flying. But yeah. So the girlfriend, that soon to be practice wife, was she was in the RAF, so she was a RAFie. So she worked in the squadron, and yeah. So when it came time for me to get my orders out of there, like time was drawing to a close, I'd already kind of engineered a backdoor deal, having the CO of VMFAT 101 asking for me to come be an instructor at the RAG, right? So I called him, called the monitor up, and he's like, "There is no way you're getting 3 back-to-back flying tours." Right? I might even have been paid for it at the time, actually.
Was that Oingo at the time?
I can't remember.
Jeff
If it was
Hoeing?
Oh, it might have been. I can't remember. Can't
Yeah.
remember if it was him or Vapor. It would have been.
Yeah.
Oh
late
yeah,
90s.
yeah. You're right. It was probably
It's
Vapor.
either
Yeah,
Vapor
yeah,
or
it was
Oingo.
probably
Yeah.
Vapor.
95, I think, late 95.
Yeah,
So
it was totally Vapor, dude. Yep.
he's like, no, that's not happening. I'm like, well, what do you got for me? And he's like, oh, you're going to go to TBS to be staff at TBS.
Oh no!
And then we're going to send you
If you had another guess.
then command and staff college. And I was like, TBS followed by command and staff college. I was like,
Command and laugh. Oh,
so it was like 3 years out of the cockpit. And I was like,
Nah.
I think I'll pass. So yeah, ended up pulling the handle and getting out and moving back to Australia.
Nice. All right. Well,
All right.
before we go back to Australia, you mentioned pulling the handle. You
pulling the
opened the
handle.
show talking about your hand on the handle. How did that happen?
Yeah, what was that?
I
about?
had the worst run of luck when it came Hornets. Time for Hornet CQ, right? So
Okay.
for the listeners who don't know, every time you go to you always go to the boat as the end thing for any jet. So end of T2s, you go to the boat. End A4s, you go to the boat. End of Hornet training, you go to the boat. So I was going through Hornet training when Desert Shield was on, right? Desert Storm, Desert Shield, Desert Storm.
Right.
So there were no
Yeah.
aircraft carriers available to do CQ. So what they did is they sent everybody, they just waived CQ and sent everybody to their gun squadrons and said,
Okay.
we'll call you back when we have boats. So I was like, yeehaw, maybe they'll just forget about me or whatever. So I went to 451. I was at 451 for, I don't know, 2 or 3 months. And then they went, oh, no, you got to come back now and do CQ. And I was like, damn. All right. So went back to 125, the Navy RAG, and we went out to the Ranger. So we did the workup for the boat, went out to the Ranger. I think I got like a couple traps on day 1. Day 2 rolled around. We were staying on the boat. I was getting ready a bit early, so I had all my gear on, G suit and torso harness and something. And I was sitting in the ready room, and our ready room was right below the flight deck between the arresting gear engines for the 2 and the 3 wire, right?
Oh, nice.
So-
yeah, that's nice.
I was sitting in there, and every couple of seconds, you hear the cable pull out, right? So I'm sitting there waiting to go, and I'm watching the plat camera, and this F-14's coming in, and it I don't know if you've ever seen F-14s come aboard the boat, but it's not a pretty sight. They're pretty ugly coming aboard. Anyway, he hits, and I hear him hit the deck above me, boom, and then I'm watching on the plat camera. He gets about halfway through the rollout, and the 3 wire snaps, right?
Oh, shit.
And there's a huge explosion in the room next door, and like all the pictures that are hanging on the wall come off, boom, boom. And then I run out and I open the door and I look down the passageway, and there's smoke billowing out of the room next door, and people diving out of the room. And then I run up to the side of the ship, and I open the door to the side of the ship, open the hatch to the side of the ship, and see these 2 tails in the water just going past. Right?
Oh no.
So this Tomcat's come in, it's got halfway through the rollout, the 3 wire snapped, and now he's too fast to stop, but doesn't have enough smack to get airborne again. They just trickle off the edge of the carrier and go to the water. So I was like, oh, guess I'm not flying today. Started unzipping all my stuff and putting them around. So yep, sure enough, the safety stand down. We all have a good think about it, and now we're just going to continue going ahead with the carrier quals, but with no 3-wire. And I'm like, well, that's good. I was never going to get anywhere near that one anyway. So
That's perfect.
we're just going to continue with no 3-wire. So then the next day, this is 3 days after the initial accident, which is like now the next day. It's kind of marginal weather. So we're not doing circuits. We're doing straight into the back of the boat. And I get all suited up. I go up to flight deck control. For those listeners, that's at the base of the superstructure on the aircraft carrier. And that's where they manage where all the airplanes are, right? So if you want to know where your airplane is parked, you go into the flight deck control and they'll tell you where the airplane's parked. So I'm all suited up. I go in. I'm like, hey, I'm Raider 14. Do you know where my plane is at? And they're like, yeah, it's up on the port cat. Just hold off for another 10 minutes or so before you walk, because we're going to recover these A6s. There's some A6s in the pattern. We're going to finish those so just hang out here, come back in like 10 minutes, right? So I'm like, okay.
Okay.
So spent a few minutes hanging out in flight deck control, and then I'm like, I'm just going to walk outside and watch flight ops. So I walk outside of the superstructure towards the front of the ship, come around the corner, and then all of a sudden, boom, a BN, a guy in a parachute, comes down on the flight deck, like right in front of us. And there's like 5 of us standing around like, what the fuck just happened?
No.
And then I look over and I can see the plan form of an A6 rolling off the side of the ship into the water, right? And
shit.
And this guy's chute is still kind of open up, full, and it's dragging him towards the side of the deck. So we all jump on him. About 5 of us jump on him and grab his legs and get him out of his Coke fittings. And then,
oh my God.
So what's happened is this A6 has come in and he's taken the wire, but the A6, the way the tail hook attaches to the A6, it's got the one hook at the bottom, but where it attaches to the airframe, it's like a Y shape. So there's 2 attachment points on the airframe itself.
Okay.
And he's coming and taking a trap, and this one's broken, right? So the outboard one's broken, and so it kicks him sideways, and he goes, there's like 5 Hornets parked on the port cat. He goes plowing straight into the first 3 Hornets. So they punch out, and the airplane just goes straight into the first 3 Hornets, hits the first Hornet. That kind of hits the first Hornet, hits the second one, takes the bulk of the impact. Second one hits the third one, and my airplane was the 4th one.
You're going to go fly.
Yeah, the A6 rolls off the side and into the water. And that number 2 Hornet that took the brunt of the impact was a write-off, and it had 50 hours on it. It had just come from the factory.
Oh my gosh.
So now we've had the second accident in like 3 days, which is completely trashed 3 airplanes and damaged 2 more. Yeah, there you go. Completely damaged 2 more. And I'm like, oh, guess I'm not flying today. Take all my shit back off. And then so they're like, that's it, Danger Ranger. They've just gone, that's it. Like, get your students away from the boat. Well, we don't want you here anymore. Just go away. So,
Go away.
that's it. We all fly back to the shore. That's over. No more CQ. So I didn't get my CQ done then. So we have to wait like another month, right? So now we do another workup. And then now we're going out to the Roosevelt to finally finish the quals off. There's some storm. We got to fly through some storm to get out to the Roosevelt. We finally get out there. Boom, take a couple traps. I'm like, finally I'm getting some traps. Take some traps, and you get to what's called a hold down fuel. And the hold down fuel is you don't have enough fuel to launch you off the front anymore. So when you're doing carry quals, you take a trap, and then they'll taxi you back up to the catapult, off the front again, back around, take a trap, up to the catapult, boom, back around, take a trap, catapult, trap, right? So you get to a point where you don't, you get to hold down fuel and you don't have enough fuel for the cat shot, right? So they signal me over to the corner in front of the island, in front of the superstructure. They're going to hot refuel me. So they chain me down to the deck, have me shut down the right engine on the Hornet, and that's where the fuel receptacle is. They put a live hose in the fuel hose in the front of the right side. Your left engine is still running, and then they'll just top you up to whatever fuel state they want to top you up to, right? So I'm waiting for the fuel to come on, so I'm kind of relaxing, and I'm watching my friends come in and take their traps and taking notes so I can give them shit later, right? And then I hear the air boss go, rotate, rotate, rotate. And I was like, fuck. Like, he scared me enough that I was going to ready to rotate, right? And I'm stationary. But,
I'm trying.
yeah, okay, whatever, sure. But rotate's not a landing call; it's a takeoff call, right? So I'm like, I look up at the cat, and I'm like just behind the right catapult, and someone's gone off the right starboard cat, and they've gone off and disappeared below the catapult, but below the flight deck,
Brutal.
right?
Oh,
Yeah.
that's not good.
And for the listeners, the flight deck's like 60 feet off the water, right? So he's disappeared below the flight deck, and I was like, oh shit. But then we see him come up again. Like, so you're looking at towards the front of the ship, and he's disappeared, and then he's come back up again. I was like, oh, he's saved it. Wow, amazing. And he's coming up, and then he starts down again, back towards the water. And I was like, I'm like, oh, that's not good. And so he goes back down towards the water. So he's gotten into this sine wave, right? And every time he's gone, he's getting a little closer to the water every time, right? So he's up on the upside of the sine wave, and the boss finally calls him to eject. So he pulls the handle, poof, he goes out, and watch him go, and he goes off into the water, and then the airplane just keeps going, right? So there's nobody in it now. It's still gear down, full afterburner, no canopy, and it's just going
to the moon,
like straight up to the moon, right? And I was like, holy shit. And then, wah, 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 like, so all the klaxons go off on the ship, right? And everybody just goes, and they are gone. There is nobody left on the deck except me and this other dude in the same situation as me. He's parked there, chained down with the fuel hose.
You're chained down.
Chained down,
One
engine running,
fuel
hooked up.
Fuel hooked up.
What could possibly go wrong?
Right, so this thing's going up, 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 and then the boat goes into a max performance turn to the right. So it does as hard a turn as it can to get out of the way. And then if you ever watched like sea trials of a carrier, if it goes a hard turn to the right, the centrifugal force makes the flight deck go like that, right? Towards the water.
Right.
Towards the water, right?
Makes it roll
towards the
left.
towards the outside of the turn, right? So now I'm sitting there strapped in and think, and now it's doing this, right? And I'm looking down at the water, and I'm going, this is so fucked. And then I'm watching the airplane, and I'm like, where's it going to go? And it's finally run out of smack, and it's done a wing over, right? And now it's coming back down.
Oh shit!
So the boat's in its max performance turn to try and get out of the way, and then I'm trying to trace the flight path. I'm like, where's it going to go? And I'm like,
I'm thinking it's not going to outrun the airplane.
I'm like, oh shit, it's coming right back down on the carrier, man. Like, it's going to come straight back down. And I was like, fuck this. So I'm tightening up my straps, waist strap, shoulder strap, put the mask back on, grab the handle, and I look above me to clear the ejection path, and I'm right under all these antenna arrays and wires and cables in front of the superstructure.
You got to be shitting me.
So I can't punch out. I'm just going to get shredded, right?
Oh, shit.
And then so this thing's done this big wing over, and it's coming back at the boat, and it's coming. Yeah, there you go. That's it, right?
Picture of it on our live stream.
Yeah. So it's coming straight back at the boat. Now it's coming like side onto the boat because it's done this kind of wing over back towards the boat, and I'm looking right at it, and it's going. Bang! There's nobody in it. This is this empty airplane.
But it's foresight, yeah.
Right? And I'm like, I remember the thought in my head going, this looks just like one of those kamikaze reels from World War II. It's exactly what it looked like.
Right. Oh my God.
And then, so it's going, and I'm like, oh, is it going to hit? Is it not going to hit? Is it going to hit? And then it hits maybe like 20 meters from the side of the boat, hits the water, and then just disintegrates, right? It just explodes into a million pieces. And now all the pieces are raining down on the deck, right? And I'm just sitting there like that. I don't know why. It's not going to help. But I'm just sitting there like this. And pieces are raining down everywhere. Boom, 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 boom. And I was like, and then all of a sudden the boat kind of rights back up again. And then everyone comes out of their little hidey holes and sirens stop. And I was like, holy shit. And then they just all go up to the front of the deck, shoulder to shoulder, FOD walk down the whole flight deck, picking up all pieces. And then the helicopter comes in. They pick the guy up out of the water, They land on the deck, take him to the sick bay.
Okay.
Helicopter pisses off again, and then everyone's back in their places, and the air boss.
I know what time it is. It's time for flight ops.
Raider 1-4, you're next for the starboard cat. I was like, do we not want to figure out what just happened there before you shoot me off of that same cat?
Right?
I don't know how, but I pulled the qual out of my ass somehow. But I was like, I do not ever want to see a boat ever again as far as long as I was.
Oh my gosh! So was that a Hornet guy from your that was getting qualled like you? Did you know that guy?
It was a CO of an A7 squadron that was converting to Hornets.
Oh my gosh! Do you know what happened to the plane? I mean, why? Did you ever get any feedback on why it started?
Initially, they thought it was PIO because you're not supposed to take a shot in the Hornet with your hand on the stick. You actually just trim it to, I can't even remember what it was, like 14 degrees nose up or something. And then you put your hand behind the stick, but you don't hold on to the stick.
Yeah.
And then as it goes off as it goes off the pointy end, it just settles into its angle of attack and it flies away and you grab the stick again. So they initially thought it was PIO, but then there was another incident like 6 months later where they didn't lose the airplane. But the airplane had two AOA vanes, angle of attack vanes on either side of the nose. And they were the flying wing AOA vanes,
Yeah.
that you have on commercial airplanes, right? And that what they think now is that it took a cat shot and one of the AOA, this is what happened to the other one that they recovered. One of the AOA vanes got stuck. So the cat shot's pretty violent, right? So you take cat shot, one of them got stuck in the up position, right?
Okay.
And wasn't moving anymore.
So the computer's trying to lower the AOA on that stuck vane.
So in the Hornet, there's two flight control computers and the stick, which is all fly-by-wire. So you're just a voting member in what's happening, right? Like I get one vote and the flight control computers get two votes, right? So they think that two flight control computers were fighting, like we're way high, nose high. No, we're not. We're fine. We're way high. We're nose not. We're fine. And then he's putting his inputs in as well, and everything just turned into a jumble of ones and zeros, right? And then it just became uncontrollable. But so they actually ended up changing out AOA vanes to be those. I don't know if you've ever seen those conical ones that are just like a cone shape.
Yeah. Yep.
They ended up swapping out a bunch of AOA vanes after that, I think. So I think that's what actually ended up happening.
Well, I'm glad you didn't die. That would have been a horrible way to die.
Yeah. Like that ain't my fault. Like I didn't do anything. I'm just sitting here. But
Well, it's a good thing you looked up before you pulled the handle, because that could have gone really horribly bad as well.
That
right?
would have been some lunch meat if I had done that.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So, Spook, you stayed in Australia, resigned your commission after your exchange tour, is that right?
Yeah, so I came back to the States and then finished up some admin stuff and resigned and got out and moved back to Australia and been there since '96, man. But
Holy cow.
I think August will be the halfway point where I've spent half my life in the US and half my life in Australia.
That's awesome.
Nice.
And so you finished flying, you finished a military career flying in the Royal Australian Air Force?
That's right. Yep.
Well, that's pretty awesome.
Nice.
And so how many hours did you end up in the Hornet?
Almost 1,200, like 1170, 1180, something like that.
Okay. And was that an Australian Hornet that you took over 50,000?
Yeah. I got witnesses and then immediately erased the tape, so there was no equivocation. Like again, diplomatic immunity, right? So I was a PMCF pilot, post maintenance check flight pilot for at 451, but in the Australian Air Force as well. So they had given me, when I was getting near the end of my time there, and they'd given me one to go do a check flight on, and it was a C card. An A card is like everything. You need to check everything, right?
Yeah.
The C card is just like they've done an engine change or something, and you can get a C card done with half a tank of gas, right? And I think it was an engine change that they'd done, and it was a slick Hornet, right? You never get a slick Hornet. No drop tanks, no pylons,
nice.
no captive.
Unless you're the
carry
Blue
aim.
Angels, no slick Hornet for you.
No Slick Hornet. And the pylons are like so draggy on the Hornet, right? So, so they gave me a Slick Hornet. I had half a tank of gas left, and I was coming to the end of my tour. So I'm like, you know what? Let's see how high I can get one of these, right? So I did the Rutowski climb bit. You remember that? The Rutowski climb?
Okay.
It's this formula for getting as high and fast as you can get, right? And I got it up to 63,000 feet.
Hey,
And it did not like it at all. Like there was like a 2-knot margin between max speed and min speed, right? Like we were in this tiny little, the rudder pedals were just doing this. And then I started getting all these intake high heat messages and then I'm like, oh, well, I'm up here. I might as well see how fast I can get it, right? So I just pointed it like straight down and just went, whoosh. And I got it up to 1.91 Mach. Which, like I'd never seen anything over like 1.2 before in that airplane.
Nice.
So yeah, I got it 63,000 feet and 1.91. I brought the HUD tape back and I went, come here. Watch. See that? 63? Yep. He's like, oh my God, wow. 1.91? Yeah, wow, holy shit. Erase. I've got witnesses now. I don't want to.
Don't saw me, you can't prove a thing.
Yeah, can't prove a thing.
that's awesome.
But she did it. She did it. God bless her. God bless the Slick Hornet.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, all right.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Holy shit,
Repeat.
other flying stuff. We got to wrap here pretty quick, but let's go with, you know what? We'll tease it, and we'll do a quick extra. And let's see, that was how high and how fast you can get. We'll go to the extra, and I'm going to ask you about getting grounded for buzzing an airfield on your $1,000 flight in the Hornet. So, yeah, if you folks go and give us some Patreon, and for a $5 donation, we'll get you the unlisted URLs so you can see all of the extras that we do with our guests, and we'll do one with you about getting grounded.
Diplomatic community.
Yeah, exactly. So, but in the meantime,
community.
right? Yeah. But in the meantime, I think we need to say thank you for your service. We're grateful for that.
Man.
Foster.
So grateful for having done it, man, and flying with guys like
Thank you, sir.
Great time.
Yeah. Thank you for your
now
service.
Australia thanks you for their service as well now, right?
Exactly.
Maybe
That's
not
where
them
it's
so much.
going. They're not as thankful. Their car didn't last much longer.
All the damage that was done.
Yeah. So thank you to all the active duty and the veterans who have served, and to their families who have sacrificed so much to make it possible for our veterans to serve. Your sacrifice does not go unnoticed.
Thank you guys for having such a great podcast, man, and getting so many cool people on. And you're doing God's work, keeping all these stories alive and categorizing all these stories, man. It's great. It's great stuff.
We're just
It's
a
a
conduit.
blast.
We're
It
having
is
a ball.
blast listening to everyone's stories, man, because
Right.
everybody's got great stories. And thank you for
indeed.
yours.
They're awesome. They're
That's my
awesome.
pleasure,
So,
brother.
Yeah. So we also need to mention that we have a glossary. I think we're going to put a couple more terms in there, but that's at sotherewas.us/glossary. And if you want some cool merch is starting to take off a little bit. People are going and ordering. Yeah. Where would you go get some merch there, Fig?
So there I was .us/merch.
That's it.
And it's bikini season. We have a so there I was. There it is. Thanks, Bago. There's
Yeah.
So yeah, you got now. It's bikini season, so check it out.
Up there on the stream, I saw one got ordered yesterday when I was going through the store to see what was what and what's moving. Yeah, so got to start seeing those at the beach, everybody. And if you have any questions, reach out. How might one get a hold of us?
Let's see. Fig at sotherewas.us. Repeat.
Yep.
REPETE at sotherewas.us. Or if you want a valid, intelligent answer, It Sticks at SoThereIWas.us or Bago at SoThereIWas.
There you go.
SoThereIWas.us. Got a little lost there. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And as I mentioned a minute ago, we're going to go do an extra story here with Spook. You can get to that if you go to sothereiwas.us/Patreon. And thank you to everybody who has shared their hard-earned money with us. We are humbled and grateful for it. And if you want to give us a rating, sothereiwas.us/rate, and that'll give us give you the best link you can to get us a 5-star rating. Count them 5, not 4, not 3. Don't do it.
If you can't give us a 5, tell us what we can do to make it a 5.
Yeah,
because we're
that's
trainable.
right. Exactly.
Barely.
Exactly. Barely. Yeah. Badass Brad Silcott at bdsaviationphotography.com. He's listening today. We chatted with him a little bit pre-show. Thank you, Badass, for all the cool stuff that you sent me. I will share some with Fig, I suppose. He sent us some
I think
patches
I
and
have
stickers.
some waiting for me. I'm traveling.
Oh, there you
Badass.
go.
I think
Okay.
it's waiting for me. Thank you in advance. Thank you, sir.
Oh, good. I don't have to share. Cool stickers, cool challenge coins. Good stuff. So, appreciate that. No. And then thanks to the 2 gents who are making that noise in the background, who were a great show. 2 shows, actually. The Dose show.
Gringos.
Dose Gringos. Yeah, go listen to their music wherever you find music. Amazon, Spotify, Apple Music. The Dose Gringos. They'll have you in stitches. Good stuff.
They got, there's 4 albums. They put out 4 albums. Not a bad song on any one of those. They're all
Not a
awesome.
one.
Not one.
They are indeed. They are indeed. Big, I think it's time we get out of here. Any advice for folks until next week?
Don't put on the ejection seat handle.
Yeah, don't do it. You may need to get out of that thing.
Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond of all the shit I was wearing on that day. Now an F-16 is cramped enough, but it's even worse with all that stuff supposed to save your life. But we knew there was no way. 'Cause when you're going down the North Atlantic, man, it's over.
It's what?
It said it's over.
Picked the wrong week. Quit sniffing glue.
All right. We're out. All right. Gonna end the stream. Well, no, we'll kill it there. Talk for just a little bit. Yeah, so we'll go over there. We'll talk about the 1,000 hours, your 1,000th hour
Yeah.
flight in the Hornet. That's awesome. And then it looks like you got another one there too. Maybe shooting down a QF4. So yeah. Whoops. All right. So 2 stories there, folks. In the extra, come see us at Patreon. We were running long, thanks to running late when we started. Thanks to Fig's internet.
Yeah, it's me.
But you fixed it.
It is me.
You fixed it. You fixed it. It's good.
I had to move into this room where these fuckers are over here just having a ball.
Yeah. Mouthing off. All right. Well, I'm going to end this stream, so take care, everybody. And Spook, I'm going to send you a link for the other one here real quick, and we'll see you in the other studio. Mosh Kosh.
Roger,
Everybody,
brother.
take care. So long.